Welcome to this episode. Today we're diving into the most powerful type of respectful verbs, replacing form verbs. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to identify the 6 most common replacing form verbs, recognize how context determines meaning in these verbs, and finally, to use replacing form verbs together with the polite mas ending. Replacing verbs, as the strongest type of respectful verbs, are especially important in formal situations and when talking about people of much higher social status. What makes replacing verbs unique is that they completely substitute their plain verb counterparts with a new respectful verb. In this lesson, we'll cover the 6 most common replacing verbs. The first 4 verbs are very common and only replace one plain verb each. Osharu replaces the verb you, to say. Kudasaru replaces the verb kureru, to give. Nasaru replaces the verb suru, to do. And goran ni naru replaces the verb miru, to see. In each case, the core meaning of the plain verb is maintained in the new respectful verb, with the addition of an expressive layer of meaning, the creation of vertical distance. The next group of verbs are a little bit trickier. These verbs replace more than one plain verb. Irasharu can replace 3 plain verbs. Kuru, to come. Iru, to be. And iku, to go. Of these 3 potential meanings, the correct interpretation will depend on the context. Similarly, meshiagaru replaces 2 verbs, taberu, to eat, and nomu, to drink. The ambiguity created by having more than one core meaning helps contribute to the respect implied by the respectful verb. With the 6 most common replacing verbs covered, let's talk about conjugation. All replacing form verbs are godan verbs, so we only have to pay attention to this type of verb. Making godan verbs into the polite mas form is as easy as dropping the final u and adding imasu. For example, kimaru, to decide, kimarimasu. Hashiru, to run, hashirimasu. Kairu, to return, kairimasu. However, replacing verbs that end in saru, zaru, and sharu have an irregular conjugation pattern. They can be converted to the polite form by dropping the final ru and adding the ending imasu. A great way to remember this irregular pattern is through a phrase you probably already know, ohayou gozaimasu. Gozaimasu follows the same irregular conjugation rule. After all, it is gozaimasu and not gozarimasu. Keep in mind that this rule only applies to replacing verbs ending in saru, zaru, and sharu. For example, meshiagaru is regular, so its replacing form is meshiagarimasu, not meshiagaimasu. To recap, in this lesson we covered the 6 most common replacing form verbs, discussed how context determines the meaning of replacing verbs that replace more than one plain verb, and how replacing verbs ending in saru, zaru, and sharu have an irregular conjugation. In the next lesson, we'll learn to easily show respect by attaching replacing verbs to plain verbs. See you there.